Hello, Chicago, TGIF friends, and welcome to the voice of the Chicago sports fan. This is Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. Thank you so much for kicking off your weekend with us. We cannot wait to talk sports with you for the next hour. So much to cover tonight, ladies and gentlemen. There's a war at Hallis Hall for supremacy among the Chicago Bears. This is going to be the offense. It's going to be the defense. Who is going to carry this team to the playoffs in 2024? Meanwhile, Caleb Mania is running wild in the Windy City. The Chicago Cubs are trying to decide if they are Marlon Brando, true playoff contenders, or just simply pretenders. And the Chicago White Sox are wondering if they're a major league team or minor league team. Sox owner Jerry Reinsdorf is as quiet as a monster responding to an IRS tax audit. The Blackhawks are looking for Connor Bedard's wingman. The Sky are trying to fly high the Willis Tower, and we will cover it all with you tonight. Thank you so much again for joining us. I am Cleet Soup Campbell from Iowa, along back with the great American DJ Matt Cooper. Coop, my friend, how you doing?
Dude, first off, it's good to see you, man. It's always good to be on a Friday night with my buddy Cleet, talking sports, talking Chicago sports, and everybody in our chat room, too. It's already getting busy in there, man. So thank you guys for watching tonight. This is awesome.
Cliff, chime in, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, fellas. It's good to have you both with us. And like you said, it's been a hot minute, Coop. I think this is the first time you and I have been free in about 3 weeks or so. So it's
original OGs, Cleet.
Exactly. The original CSP OGs, without question. So this is Chicago Sports Podcast, friends, brought to you by the Punky LT brand and Trax Hyatt. Be sure to hit that like button on YouTube, subscribe, friends, so you get every exciting edition of Monsters of the Madhouse. Cliff, Victoria, already rocking and rolling. I love where you're going, Cliff. And Cliff will lead us in, ladies and gentlemen, to our leadoff segment here of Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. This segment brought to you by the official fantasy sports partner of CSP. That is Underdog Fantasy. Get in on the fun with Underdog Fantasy. I tell you what, Cheryl, great to see you as well. Coop, I tell you what, there has been a war brewing, an absolute all-out war between units at Hallis Hall during minicamp this week. The Bears' new-look offense, of course, captained by Caleb the Chef Williams, against a Bears defense that is looking to make statements, ladies and gentlemen, and they have not been going easy on Caleb or anybody in this rookie class. And Coop, this is where we start. A good week of minicamp. I think we saw better play from Caleb, and we're going to break down his play day by day here in a few minutes. But if you had to give us a victor of who was more dominant unit this week, Bears offense versus Bears defense, and obviously we know, folks, it's minicamp. You can't put too much stock into this. But who won the week for you, Coop?
You know, it's kind of tough, but I am going to say the defense. I think the defense did. You know what I like about this, too? And you guys can chime in, too, everybody commenting in the chat room. But I think what this makes me feel good about is I feel like our defensive swagger is back with this team.
Yes.
And we kind of started getting that back last year, especially when they made that trade for Sweat. And you started seeing a build and you started seeing them come together as a unit. And I kind of feel like that has carried on over now into the training, because now you got these guys on another year together. Now you got Edwards and you got Edmonds together as the linebackers. We heard them talking this week. And then you got our secondary. You got all of our guys intact here. We got Johnson signed again. And I think that's a really good sign, because this defense, I think this season is going to be a lot when it comes to our defense, is because we have our rookie quarterback. And guys, we have a rookie quarterback. We don't know what we're going to get, what type of play we're going to get. We know he's going to be, we think we know he's going to be great. I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to be a superstar. But in the first year, we just got to see what happens. So I think that my takeaways is this defense is already out there, and they're trying to get on top of their game, but they're there together, and that's a good thing to see.
Yeah, they're there, Coop, and they are making noise, and that's the consensus in the Chicago Sports Podcast chat room is off from Brujas 7, a Cliff. The defense really, I think, did win the week, and I just love the noise. I love the chatter, and I love the swagger that these guys are carrying. And like you say, you know, when Montez Sweat comes in and brings in that kind of bravado, and it's really feeding off. And you see, I just love how Kyler Gordon has just been hawking in practice this week too. This defense obviously wants to be an elite unit, without question. They want to be the Cleveland Browns. They want to be the New York Jets. They want to be the best of the best in the NFL. And, they kind of, I think, are modeling themselves off that legendary, Legion of Boom Seahawks defense that was so loud, so arrogant, so bravacious. When you think about that unit that was, of course, led by Richard Sherman and others. Do you like the fact that these guys are getting loud, getting cocky this early, Coop?
I love it. I think it's great. I think it's great. And I think you got to have that sense of toughness on some of that. Now, I guess you can go either way when you start looking about, are they talking too much? Are they doing that? No, man. You're in the big leagues right here now. And I think this is good for our rookie quarterback. Because a lot of times, think about this, guys. A lot of times when you have a rookie quarterback going into a situation, normally it's not a good situation. Normally they're going into a complete rebuild or they're going to a team that hasn't been very well. I mean, look at the other quarterbacks that are going to be playing this year. Look at Daniels. I mean, he's going to a Washington team that's completely revamped. How about Jake May going to New England? I mean, how many games are New England going to win this year? What, three at the most, probably? And then we look at the Bears situation with Caleb Williams, and we have veteran players all over the place. That'll be on offense, but on defense. And a lot of these guys are stuck together now, and they're just telling him, hey, this is what we expect out of you. This is what you're going to get from a top-level defense. And I think they know that. They know that. They know they got their core together, and they're just trying to make him better. And whether they talk about it or they're chirping out there, I think at the end of the day, that could make Caleb Williams take another step, or that could put something into him saying, hey, this is what the best of the best defenses in the NFL is going to look like.
Yeah, and I like the fact that's what the defense is trying to teach Caleb early. They're gonna this is what you're going to get every Sunday. We're trying to give you this kind of trash talk, the kind of intensity, the kind of meanness to a certain extent. And I mean, let's face it, we've talked about it. Cliff's talked about it. Everybody in the chat room. The greatest defense of all time. This was their MO. I mean, the Monsters of the Madhouse, or the Monsters of the Midway. I don't know if there was in the history of the game, not even maybe the 2000 Ravens, phenomenal defense anchored by Ray Lewis. I don't think anyone had this kind of just in your face, we're better than you confidence and swagger that the 85 Bears did. And I love the fact that these guys are trying to emulate that. Now, will they get to that level? Of course not. But I think that's how you become elite. That's how you become rare. And that's how you become great. But Cooper, you brought up a great point. Let's go back to what you were talking about. The first 4 weeks of the season, we all know we got to be realistic. Caleb Williams and the Bears offense will struggle to score points. I mean, let's face it. You can't expect a rookie quarterback to be putting up 30 spots week in and week out for his first 4 games in the NFL. So the defense will have to carry them. There'll be a lot of ball position, I think field position battles, and I think it's going to be about winning the third down game, particularly against Tennessee, because you and I were talking in the pre-show. That just has all the feel of a game that's going to be like a really ugly, like 1917, 2016 type game that probably will be decided by the defense, Torrey Taylor's punting, and Cairo Santos' late.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm happy that he's going through this now with an elite defense, because I think it's kind of interesting to start the season. We were talking a little bit about this before the show today, Cleet, that a rookie quarterback, you don't know what you're going to get. And I know I've said this a couple of times on some past shows here on Monsters of the Madhouse. We all think that Caleb Williams is going to be elite. I know I said that here a little bit ago, but he's going to. I think he is. I think he's going to be a great quarterback in this league, especially with the right pieces around him. But in a rookie year, in a first year under a new coordinator and into a new league with some new teammates, you don't know what you're going to get. And I think that first game is all going to be so important because there's so many parallels between the Titans and the Bears right now. They got a second-year quarterback that's going to be going in there with Will Levis. And we don't know what he's going to be, but I also like their head coach. I think their head coach, Brian Callahan, coming from Cincinnati, he's got that offensive mind. He is in that Sean McVay type of tree with Zach Taylor as the head coach of the Bengals. Very good coach, very good offensive mind. And they kind of built around that team. They signed a lot of players, a lot of free agents, and I thought they made a couple of really good draft picks. So it's going to be interesting that first game, those first couple of games, is Williams going to be able to be out there slowly getting into the offense? And how is he going to progress with that offense as we continue on with the season?
Yeah, because let's face it. I mean, Caleb Williams could have the greatest training camp. He could look phenomenal in preseason, but all that, as we know, means nothing until he proves it. Starting week 1 against Tennessee. Now let's go into Caleb and his progress this week. This segment is called Caleb Williams, Natural Born Chicago Leader by way of Washington D.C. Friends. This segment also brought to you by Budget Jet Cars, your trusted partner for finding safe, reliable, affordable, and ultra stylish transportation during this wild Chicago summer. Now, Matt Cooper, as Rod Stewart croon, you are forever young. But in your few Earth years here on Earth, have you ever seen? You've seen a lifetime's worth of quarterbacks. I mean, you've seen enough quarterbacks to drink yourself under in 30 minutes in a drinking game of Name That Bears quarterback. The oldest, but the thing about it is, of all the quarterbacks we've seen, I cannot remember a quarterback having this kind of natural leadership skills since maybe the punky QB Jim McMahon. It just seems like this is a guy everywhere you turn. Caleb Williams is already becoming the type of leader at the quarterback spot that Justin Fields wasn't comfortable with being. Mitch Trubisky wasn't comfortable being. Lord knows, Jay Cutler wasn't comfortable being. It seems like this is our first true leader at quarterback in a generation. What's your take on that?
I agree with that. First off, I was looking at the chat here. Cliff brought up a good point. Says that the hype is kind of similar to Manning and Luck when they were rookies. I agree. That's what I was thinking about the other day, that this kind of reminds me of Andrew Luck with all the hype coming out with him when he came out of college.
Yeah.
And he was a leader, and I thought he was a leader. He just unfortunately had some injuries and some concussions that made him couldn't play anymore. But I think everything that I have watched started from the combine. Remember this? I feel like this was like ages ago, but it was only back in March, the combine, the NFL combine in Indianapolis, where we heard him talk, and he was talking about. Well, that wasn't Indianapolis. He had his pro day. That's what it was. It was his pro day, and he had his throws, and he was talking about it, and he was talking about how he could have made some better, could have done this better, but he felt okay. And I'm like, man, that's a leader right there. You already heard that right there when he was talking about leadership, and you kind of felt that from him when that came out. And now fast forward to the mini camps this week, and you see him talk, you see him perform, you see what some of the other players around the team have said about him. And you kind of get the vibe that this guy is going to be a leader someday. Is he there yet? Well, he's a rookie, but there's other leaders in the Bears locker room that they're going to have.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have to be that.
You're right. He doesn't. But if you'll scroll across the bottom of your screen on our CSP ticker, you can see Caleb's thoughts. What he told the media today at training camp. He goes, "I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel in regard to this offense becoming elite. Right now, we're working with our head down and we're building. So just to have that moment with myself, I'd love to do that every day. Sit up with myself and try to get better. So that's." All the, you could say maybe it's a kid who knows how to say the right things, but that just tells me that this is a guy who is trying to become a better quarterback at practice tomorrow than he was today. And, that's something that we really haven't had. I think, we've had guys talk a big game, in post game, and post-practice scrums and post-game sprints, but never a guy who came out of the gates like Caleb Williams had. The world's most dangerous drinking game continues to be take a shot at Chris Chelios's El Bambino Yankee every time the Bears, employ a quarterback. But I finally feel like we have our 5-year quarterback here because Caleb Williams is going to be willing to make the adjustments necessary, not only to be a serviceable quarterback, but to become an elite quarterback for this team.
I was reading something earlier today. Gosh, I remember where I was reading it from, and it's going to kill me now. Yeah. But I was talking about one of his games last year when he had 3 interceptions. I believe that was the Notre Dame game. I think that was a Notre Dame game that he had.
Yeah,
that was a really bad day. Yeah, okay. We had the interceptions, and you think you get down on something like that. I'm like, oh man, but he's a type of player that he would not let that happen again. So I feel like even with the interceptions that he's made so far in training camp right now, minicamp, not training camp, minicamp, he's not going to make those same mistakes again. I feel like he learns so quick, and he's so eager to win, and he's so eager to be that type of quarterback on another level and be that number 1 pick that he's going to overcome some of those mistakes. And you got to remember this too. And I think this is for any form of life, Cleve. We're talking about Caleb Williams walking into a new system. Think about any one of us walking into a brand new job. I mean, heck, it happened to me 7 months ago.
Yeah.
Going to a new city, to a new place, to a new job. Think of all that stuff you got to learn. And yes, he knows how to. We all know he can play quarterback. We know he's going to be a competitive player. But you're walking into a new system with new coaches and new people, and you're trying to grasp everything and learn everything. That's not easy to do, man. And sometimes that takes a long time. Sometimes it takes a while to process a lot of that. Heck, even for me and my job, it process took me about 5 or 6 months to even
Yeah.
process the entire process, everything going on. So it's not easy to do. So that's why I'm so excited to see what he can do, because I think he's a quick learner and I think he's going to pick up on everything really quick.
Yeah, yeah, without question, Coop. And not only that, he's a true leader, and that's the thing about that. And memo to Aaron Rodgers here: leadership is defined as when you positively try to inspire, improve your teammates and team, and you already see that from him. And that's the thing. And I want to get Clip brings up a good point too. It's not like Caleb's got to go out there every day and throw to like a 110, 120 practice QBR, if there is such a thing. You want to get the mistakes out of the way now. You want to get the interceptions out of the way now. But getting back to our initial point about who's going to be better for this team, who's going to carry this team, goes back to what you're saying. This team, as good as Caleb Williams might be come week 10, will be carried by this 4-3 base defense. I would say for at least first 8 weeks of the season. Now, let's talk about this. Number one rushing defense last year. This team was fourth in yards per carry, giving up only 3.8 yards per carry. Second fewest rushing touchdowns allowed, a grand total of 8. So you got to think everything we've done and the fire of this team to become even a better, a top 5 unit. I think there's no question that this team will be your classic Bears team that will be carried by its defense for at least the first 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just kind of to what you said too, especially when we got Montez Sweat last year, you see how everybody got better on that team. And most of our defenses returned, and except, we got Kevin Bird in as our safety this year, which I've already liked what I've seen. I've always been a fan of his too. I know last year could be a little bit different for him, and I know he struggled a little bit with Philadelphia when he got traded, but I think with a full season with Chicago now, he's in the new system with all those veteran players on that defense. I think he's going to be very good. I like that signing that we had with him, so I think he's going to fit in just well. I do have, and I think that it's going to be the defense, especially with our linebackers, Edwards and Edmonds. They had great years last year. We got Jalen Johnson back, who had a terrific year last year. It kind of like we talked about of their secondary with Brisker and everybody. But I still think on defense, and eventually, and we'll see what happens here with June, we need somebody else on the line. And I like what we have on our line. And I like Dexter, and I like Billings. I like
Yeah.
Pickens, and these guys are good players. But I
Yes.
still think that other side to Sweat, we need another person that can rush the quarterback. And I don't know if they could have found that in the draft this year or in the beginning parts of free agency, but even when teams now with the cuts coming up and stuff and everything, teams are going to be looking to cut other players. I think it's going to be difficult to even find that play, because I saw the list of players that are out there right now. None of
Yeah.
those guys interest me. They just don't. And they're good players.
Yeah.
A lot of them were really good players at their time. It's just, I think a lot of those are kind of on the downhill or down end of their career. I would rather see the players we have right now as opposed to some of those veteran players that are out there. But you never know what a team could release, or somebody can be out of a job because of salary or not wanting to be there.
Yeah, without question. This is current. I know nobody can read this. The Bears' current defense, offensive and defensive 2 deep. It looks really good. But to back up your point, Coop, that the guys have been mentioning this in the chat room too. We are still one rusher away, I think, from being a legit. I mean, feared defense that's going to be a top 5 unit. So it's going to be interesting. We've been talking about the fact that a lot of us think that Ryan Poles is not done, that there's a guy out there that's going to be cut that could come into this team. Poles loves to do roster tinkering all the way up to training camp and beyond. Hey, Coop, let's backtrack a little bit to what we're talking about with Caleb Williams' leadership ability. When was the last time the Bears had a true leader at quarterback? I mean, a true field general, a guy that, you could be a 28th ranked offense and you could have scored maybe 3 points the week before, but he was so intense. He was so positive. He was so commanding in his presence and his inspiration that he could will you to win. I'm trying
Jay
to
Cutler.
think.
I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
of course. Jay Cutler, mess, Merriam-Webster's textbook definition.
You don't think Jay Cutler had that job? I thought he did a very nice
Yeah.
job as a leader for. Hey, but I thought Jay Cutler actually was okay. I actually didn't hate Jay Cutler as our quarterback. I thought a lot of he got trashed on a lot. I thought he was actually better than what he was. Was he great? No, but I thought I enjoy Jay Cutler.
Yeah, well, and you have to give him credit. I mean, we're talking about the most prolific Bears passer of all time, and you don't do that.
We can't.
But
We got to go far back further than that, man.
we do, but yeah, but you think about it. I mean, you'd have to say Sid Luckman, of course. The pedigree's there.
The
The
McMahon.
4 world championships are there. But gosh, you look through there. I mean, there were guys I think who wanted to be that guy. I think Jim Harbaugh, if the system would have worked, and I think if Iron Mike might have been a little bit more patient with Jim, maybe could have been that guy, but just the
Well,
personnel wasn't there. He
I think
wasn't
you
for
just, Cleat. I think you just said it. Mike Ditka was a head coach at that time,
yeah,
so he was the guy. He was the guy in charge. It didn't matter who you were, man. Like you had
yeah,
the captains and stuff, but Mike Ditka ran that show, especially on the offensive side of ball. So Jim
yeah.
Harbaugh could have been, but now we see the type of leader that he is, and a lot of that had to do with Mike Ditka.
Yeah, exactly. And you see the kind of quarterback and leader that he became, with the Colts, Captain Comeback, doing that legendary work there in the 2020, sorry, 1995 playoffs. Yeah, we didn't have it was Dicka's show. Dicka was going to play 3 or 4 quarterbacks a year. Guy had a bad half. He's going to go to Tom Zach or PT Willis. It just wasn't his time. But that's the thing about it, that this decades long leadership gap at quarterback, I think we finally have that filled. And that's not saying that Caleb Williams will be the answer, that the savior we've been looking for, but I think we finally have a leader there, folks. All right, friends, let's move on. If we could, let's take a look at the hard cut line. This segment of Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse, is brought to you by TC's World of Wonders, the home of America and Chicago's best online sports jersey deals. It's tcsworldofwonders.com. Get your dad his dream Chicago sports jersey this Father's Day, friends. All right, Coop. Every NFL general manager will tell you that to a man, there are no tougher, more sleep depriving, and more painful cuts than those last set of cuts before teams set their league's mandated 53-man rosters for the season right before the end of training camp. Now, Bears GM Ryan Poles has had his fair share of soul-searching roster cuts already in the past, and he's going to have some coming up here this year. Let's look at, if we could, at some of the Bears who might be fighting for their roster lives and in danger of losing their Bears game day jerseys this season if they don't have good camps. Let's start off with your thoughts. Which Bear, in your opinion, needs a killer 5-star training camp, Coop, next month to be on this team come September?
I think that's easy for me. That's Velus Jones. Maybe Dominique Robinson could be another one. But I think the first one that I think is Velus, it has to be him. You have to start with him, especially a guy that was a 3rd-round pick for us. And he's had some very ups and downs
Yeah.
for his entire career here with some of the drops. And then you see some of the positives that he can have. You can see the speed on him. You can see some of
Yeah.
his return game. You can see how effective he can be. But it's just been a little up and down for me with him, and especially now with all the receivers that we have in our receiver room. I don't know where he's going to fit inside of that. Could he be one of the final ones? And if he does very well with special teams and return, then I think he could. But here's what I would say about him. I would not be surprised if he's on the team or if he's not on the team by the time we start.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Obviously, he's a guy who should not be sleeping easy this summer, without question. All right, Coop. Let's look to these 3 Bears who. It's going to be interesting because these are 3 Bears who it might be a cap situation. It might not be necessarily their play, but can I get a yes or no? Do these 3 Bears make this team's 53-man roster on opening day against the Titans? Let's start with offensive lineman Larry Boran, a 5th-round pick in the 2021 draft. He's had moments. Obviously, he's been he's been shuffled around a bit. Is Larry on this team come opening week against the Titans?
I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to say yes because I think our offensive line we really need depth on our offensive line. We need
Yeah,
it more than ever. Now, there were times last year. Listen, he played very poorly in some games last year, and there were some times I was very disappointed in his play. But I think our offensive line, one of my main concerns this year going into the season, I've talked about this a couple of times, is our offensive line. I don't know what we're going to have or what we're going to get with some of our players with Davis. I do like the Bates pickup. I think he could be an effective player.
yeah.
Our tackles, I like the promise of our tackles, but I don't know if I like the consistency of what our offensive line has been, especially the past couple of years. So even with a guy like Borum, I think you need to keep as much depth as possible when it comes to the line.
Yep. Yeah, interesting. I'm right there with you too. And this next man, and I did some homework on this because at first I'm like, Look, I know it's June, and I know writers are scrambling for stuff. They got to fill like another, 60 some days, or I'm sorry, another 45 days or something before camp opens. But Tevin Jenkins' name, and this blows me away. I saw this in 2 to 3 spots. And I think the reason here, it's nothing to do with performance, because this guy has been a machine in spite of injuries and played literally quality football everywhere that you can on the offensive line. Lord knows we've shuffled him around. But right now, the Bears and Tevin Jenkins really are at a stalemate. They have made no progress on a contract extension. Coop, could that trade actually be in the works for the versatile 26-year-old OT if the Bears and Jenkins can't reach a deal before training camp?
I guess it could happen, but I think it would be a mistake because when he's healthy, I thought he was our best offensive lineman
Yeah.
last year. Now, I said if he's healthy, that's a big question because he can't stay healthy. He's one of my favorite players on the team. I love
Oh,
where
yeah.
he's come from. I love the way he switched positions, like the way he has.
He's
He's
such
going
a
to the
great start.
different.
Yeah.
He's really good, and I just hope he can stay healthy. And I don't. Here's the thing, though, guys. I don't blame the Bears. Like we heard that story this week about him and the contract extension and about how it's not happened. I don't blame the Bears. Like he hasn't been healthy. Like he hasn't been able to stay fully healthy in his job. So you can't just go out and shell money to somebody that has had that type of issue.
Yeah,
But at the
that's
same time, but I want him to come out and be very good this year, Clay. I want him to go out and stay healthy and be that dominant
yeah.
guard that he can be, that we know he can be.
Yeah, and I think you're right, and we're all rooting for him. But it goes back to what you're saying, Coop. He's just not healthy enough to play Pro Bowl caliber football. I mean, every year we're talking about 4, 6 games that he's missing.
That's a lot.
And if the issue is, and I don't know what his camp is asking, but if the issue is asking that he wants to be paid elite position money, well then he's kind of he's smoking something that he probably doesn't want to be smoking this close to training camp. Um, so yeah, that's the thing about it. So we're all rooting for him. He's a great member of this team. He personifies what a Chicago Bear is. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Hey, let me throw this at you. Khalil Herbert, 4.6 yards per carry in 2023. That was 11th best in the league. But we have got a pretty big backfield right now, and we've invested in some high quality talent in the offseason, some Pro Bowl caliber talent. Is Herbert on this roster come September?
Now that's a tough one, especially with our running back room the way we have it right now. I think I'm going to say yes to this. I'm going to say yes. I think a guy like them you should probably keep on the team. And I love Swift. I think Swift was a great pickup for us this year. But another guy, is he going to be able to stay healthy? Is he going to be able to play every game this year? I think so. But I think if you have all three running backs in our running back room and we kind of alternate them and let them have put them in their certain areas of position where they're at strength, I think he could still be a valuable asset to this team.
Yeah, yeah. And like our good friend Cliff Victoria says, there's three constants in life, three guarantees: death, taxes, and running backs getting injured. The more
That
you have.
happens a lot in the league.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we've learned that the hard way. We've learned that the hard way, friends, without question, over the last few years with just running backs getting injured. So I'm right there with Cliff on that. Hey, let's go. Let's switch the field again. Let's go back to the defense and talk about the 2020 Chicago rule that Kyler Gordon wants to implement. Friends, this segment of Chicago Sports Podcast is brought to you by Bridges Scoreboard, your Northwest Indiana Chicago sports headquarters with the Hall of Fame menu. All right, Coop, Bears cornerback Kyler Gordon, who's been everywhere this week, he's a man who sees the football field in crystal clear 2020 vision. And Kyler has his eyes dead focused on setting an ambitious 2020 rule for the Bears in 2024. Check this out, friends. Kyle wants this Bears defense to record 20 interceptions and force 20 fumbles. However we got to get it, we going to get it, Kyler says. Coop, is Kyler's ambitious takeaways goal for the Bears secondary defense possible?
I think it's possible. Now, I think back to what I said earlier on our rushing to quarterback, and do we have the right people in place outside of Montez Sweat to get to the quarterback? I think that's going to have a lot to do with it. And it could certainly happen with this defense, the way they fly to the ball, the smart, the line. I love the play of our linebacker. I think our linebackers are so smart in the way they play, and they're good tacklers. And then the secondary can really take advantage of that. I think this could happen. I really do, especially the way they played at the end of the year last year. Now, I guess it all depends on health too. we always have to say that about every single season. I was like, who's going to be healthy? Who's going to stay healthy? But like I see what Cliff says on our chat right now.
Yeah,
Gordon is a smart guy. Yes, he's a very smart guy.
yeah.
And I think we got really good depth too. I think we got good depth in our secondary. We got some depth in our linebackers.
Mhm.
So if we're going to be on, especially if the Bears are going to be on the field a lot, as we might think they will be because of our rookie quarterback, and offense might have some struggles at times, this could happen. I think with the way this defense played at the end of the year last year, this can happen.
Yeah, without question. I mean, this defense went from one of the worst turnover forcing units in the NFL to one of the best over the last 8 games. Montez Sweat, a huge part of that with the pressure he was bringing, forcing throws that our secondary just ate up. But I've run the numbers on that. You know, it's ambitious, and I agree. If this defense stays healthy and is clicking week in and week out, but Coop, to do that 2020 rule, that means you got to average 1.5 interceptions a week and average 1.5 fumbles forced a week.
And that's not easy to do. Not in the league this day, man, where offenses are so good and quarterback play is really good. So it's going to be very difficult. So I'm going to go out of the limb and saying, yes, this can happen. But let's just, to what you said, Clede, it's not an easy thing to do.
Absolutely. And without question, Coop, if this happens, who is the member of the Bears secondary that will make it happen? Who could make Kyler Gordon's 2020 Chicago rule come true?
Oh, to me, it's Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson's that's our main guy. That's our stud back, and that's back with us. That's our guy that makes plays, man. That's what he did last year. I think he is our best player in our secondary. I think he's one of our best players on our defense. The way he plays, the way he can take the ball away, and he's going to be the man. And now that he got paid, man, I'm glad he got paid. He deserved every second of it, but I'm ready to see him do it again this year.
Absolutely. Hey, scoreboard Cheryl Shiders with beautiful news, friends, from 35th and Shields. As Cheryl reports, back-to-back homers for the White Sox. Do not put any bets down, ladies and gentlemen.
Is Garrett Crochet still pitching?
Yeah, believe he's still in there. But you know, the thing about it, it's still a long way to go, friends. Cheryl will keep us. Cheryl, thank you so much. Please keep giving us your updates as the story there, friends. The Chicago White Sox trying to end the longest losing streak in franchise history tonight against the Red Sox. We will see what that will happen there. Also, breaking news across the Chicago Sports Podcast News Desk, folks. Before we move on, Chicago police need your help. They are looking for 26 men from the south side of the city. 26 men on the south side of the city have not been seen or heard from in almost 3 weeks. They departed on a road trip 3 weeks ago, according to police reports, looking for a victory. 3 weeks later, they are still missing, looking for that victory. Let's hope we can find those 26.
You find them? Is anybody, are they able to be found out there?
I don't know. I tell you what, let's get Chicago CPD's best out there. Hopefully they can help them.
Ooh, I hope so too. That's a long time.
I promise, friends, that's my only cheap White Sox joke tonight. I promise. Friends, let's talk about the thunder from down under, booming beyond Thunderdome. This segment of Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse, ladies and gentlemen, is brought to you by the one and only Serendipity Ice Cream Parlor, where it is always delicious summertime. Coop, Bears rookie punter Tory Taylor, the booming thunder from down under, as we know, has been kicking the ball to the shores of Canada in minicamp this week. Some of this kid's punts require a passport and a visa to touch down. Here's reporter Herb Howard's review of Taylor's work this week. Listen to this. He puts on an absolute clinic. He had 4 punts down inside the 5 on Wednesday, including one he bounced out at the 1 yard line and another that was caught up in the air by the coverage team at the 1 yard line. He had an additional 3 punts down inside the 10, and it was a windy day at House Hall, Howard notes. This kid is a weapon. Coop, Tory Taylor is going to be the best lockdown man in Chicago since the Untouchables. Elliot, Ness. Yes or no, my friend?
I'll say yes. I'll go with a yes with our punter, man. And it's pretty crazy that we're sitting here talking about a punter. I can't remember the last time in the 2 years we've been doing this, Clete, how much we've ever talked about a punter on our show. And here we are this year talking about one and it's going to be important. Listen, guys, I think his job is going to be important. Not only, I mean, he's going to have a lot of eyes on him getting drafted in the 4th round like we took him. But if Caleb Williams has some of those games where he's struggling and making some of those rookie mistakes and some of our offense going through some growing pains, especially in the first few games of the year, his job is going to be super important to pin the other team down so our defense can get after and make those stops, man. Because if we're gonna win some of these games and win them some of them close because our offense is struggling, that dude's gonna have a lot to do with it.
Yeah, without question. And eat your heart out, Mari Buford. There's a new kicker in town, a new game changer for without question. I think you were talking about it. He's going to be a factor. I think he's going to be a factor right from the opening week. I think that Tennessee game, which is going to be all about ball possession, we think with you got to think Caleb's going to struggle out of the gate. Torrey Taylor's ability to lock teams down inside the 10. I mean, we're talking about already a top 10 defense with that kind of field position. What could that mean for how good this unit can be and how dominant they could be in 2024, Coop?
Oh, I think it's gonna be a lot, man. I think if we were able to play field position in some of these games and to get our defense out there to make some of them stops, especially against some of these teams like the Titans, who only have what a second-year quarterback or pretty much a rookie because he didn't play all the games last year. But when you have some of these guys that are just making their first starts, I know we're gonna have some of those games where we play the Panthers and some other teams
Yeah.
with younger quarterbacks, but Washington, another one. I think those games are going to be important. I really do. I think if we could pin them down to the 5-10 yard line and our defense gets out there and stops them and we keep getting them with some 3-and-outs and making the field position, it'll be all about field position.
Yeah. And we got to be careful. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. This kid has never kicked an NFL game yet. We're at Soldier Field in game action. But is there any question, Coop, that Ryan Poles has gone all Sam Gerard here and found the NFL's next great punter?
Well, let's hope he did. I think so. I think so. If you listen, here's the thing: if you're taking a punter in the fourth round, which is very high
Yeah.
for a kicker or a punter, you better hope that he is going to pan out and be very well. So I trust Ryan Poles. I trust him to make the right picks, and he's done it. And he's won me over. He's made all. I think he's made a lot of the right picks so far. So I'm going to trust him on this one because if it doesn't work, then a lot of us are going to be talking on our show and we're going to hear it on other shows, Cleet. Why the hell do we take a punter in the fourth round instead of a defensive end or instead of
That's
an offensive
exactly.
lineman for some
Yeah.
depth? Or
If this is a hard swing and miss, yeah, Ryan Poles will have some questions to answer about with that too. Cliff brings up a great point that Taylor did kick at Iowa, so he's used to Midwest winters. And Cliff's absolutely right. I covered the Iowa Hawkeyes for 6 years on the beat, and that wind can swirl inside.
there's nothing out there. Of course, that wind's going to swirl.
Exactly, sure. Yeah, you are definitely in the Wild West plains of Iowa out there in Iowa City. Okay, here's the $1 million question though. Which Iowa phenom will ultimately have a better rookie year in 2024? Coop, Torrey Taylor or the phenomenal Caitlin Clark?
Ooh. I'm going to say Caitlin Clark. I think Caitlin Clark's just going to keep getting better for the season as the season goes on. And she's going through her ups and downs right now. And heck, that's being pinpointed everywhere. Every single game I feel like she plays, there are highlights on my X feed of what she did
Yeah.
wrong and what happened in those games.
Yeah,
I think I think she's going to be a superstar. I really do. I think she's going to be a superstar. I think she will give it about another. I say you give it about another month or so, and she'll start getting more acclaim to everything. And then a year from now, we're going to be talking about a superstar.
Yeah, and you're not kidding. I think she opened the game tonight hitting 7 of 11 threes, and you could tell that she was inspired and fiery because like you said, the entire sports world has been analyzing literally every move of Caitlin Clark on and off the court. And I don't know if there's anybody in pro sports right now, as of this moment, June 7th, that's under more scrutiny than Caitlin Clark. So
And
we'll
you know
definitely,
what's funny, Clee? And I know we're not going to talk about the WNBA
yeah,
here, but I was reading a lot about this because I'm just like, like between all the stuff going on and
yeah,
shoving, and I'm like, what the hell? Why the hell? The WNBA hasn't had this type of coverage ever in this league. And a lot
no,
of us have watched games, and a lot of us, I've watched
yeah,
WNBA games, you've watched WNBA games, but the
yeah,
average person has not. We got to be honest here. The average person has not, and this league hasn't been covered like this. So now there's a lot of spotlight on this league more than
yeah.
ever before. And I feel like there's so much spotlight on it that some of these players, they know that. And I don't know if they want to show that who they are or why they need to be in that position. But I think it's kind of in a new territory right now in the sports landscape.
Yeah, without question. You look at the record ratings, you look at the ticket sales, you look at the interest. I don't even think you going back all the way back. I'm a million years old, Coop. I remember when this league was launched in 1996, and there wasn't even a
So do
buzz back
I.
then like that. And it's because of her. And you're going to have that natural jealousy, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And I really think, and we're going to talk about this guy here in a moment. I think the rivalry between Angel and Caitlin is a good thing. Now
That's great for the sport.
yeah, we'll talk about Angel here in a moment of what she's going through, but it's good for the league. But anyway, getting back to the point in hand, but Tori and Caitlin, I think you got two potential rookie of the years here, potentially. Now that's saying something. I mean, when was the last time a punter was ever in consideration for rookie of the year? But you look at Cliff brings up a good point too. He was actually this is a kid that actually some was getting those random Heisman votes as a punter. Punter was definitely winning for the Iowa Hawkeyes with the worst defense or worst offense in the history of college football. It seemed like because they were able to score W's because of Tory Taylor's incredible leg. Great point here by Dustin Jones about NCAA women's basketball becoming much more popular. WNBA should be following that trend. And Dustin, amen, preaching to the choir here. Dustin's 100%. For me, the troubles with the WNBA, why they're still a 12-team league, 30 years, almost 30 years after they came into existence, is they don't know how to market. And if they screw this up, if they have dropped the ball on Caitlin Clark in this rookie class, I don't know if we'll ever see the growth in the WNBA that we all hope that we will one day see. All right, friends, we don't want to do it, but we have to. We're all singing the same sad song, the Chicago Baseball Blues, ladies and gentlemen. And
Ooh.
nobody wants to sing it. Nobody wants to sing it, but unfortunately, that's the only thing played right now in Chicago land, ladies and gentlemen. This segment of Chicago Sports Podcast is brought to you by our good friends at the Worth Stadium Club. The absolute closest experience you can get to the stadium itself is at the Worth Stadium Club. Plan it for your next game day experience with friends, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about, ladies and gentlemen, what is going on on both sides of town for Major League Baseball in Chicago. As the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes would say, Chicago's MLB teams, Coop, are indeed putting hard times on Chicago baseball fans. And let me tell you about hard times, Ric Flair. Hard times are when your beloved White Sox, when Matt Cooper's beloved White Sox have lost 14 games in a row, and your owner says, hey, here, fans, why don't you come out and spend some more money to watch this minor league team? That's hard times, Daddy. That's hard times, Ric Flair. Coop, don't look now. Don't look now, but the Cubs actually won 2 of their last 4 games, and the White Sox are actually three innings away from possibly ending the longest losing streak in franchise history. Okay, the Cubs 2 wins over the AAA Chicago White Sox. Is that proof to you that this team is still in as much of a rut as they have been over the last month?
Yeah, here's the thing. I thought after winning 2 of those, listen, they're against the White Sox. I thought would build some confidence. They had 2 come from behind wins in those games. They're very hard. As a White Sox fan, it was tough to watch, and I knew it was coming. Even when they were winning the second game, I'm like, okay, the bullpen's going to come in here and something's going to go down. But I thought that kind of gave them the spark of the comeback and like, okay, we're not this bad team. I know we've played the last couple of weeks. We haven't played very well. The entire month of May, they haven't played well. But I really felt like that was going to give them that spark. However, they've played the Reds now, who the Reds are hot, right? You got to put it on this too. The Reds have won, I think it was 10 of 13. They had a great month, and they're right there behind the Cubs and surging their way up, which I thought they would be. I thought they were just the Reds are a much better team than what they were to start the season.
That young pitching is too good for them.
And they had their best pitcher pitch tonight, and and I thought the Cubs would be able to go in there, and so far they lost the first 2 games against the Reds. That is not how you want to start, especially on a team that's right behind you, that's probably going to overtake you. Yeah. So what does it say when you play the White Sox? Well, I think any team that's going against the White Sox right now is licking their chops, saying we can get ourselves some wins and try to build our confidence. But then after that's done, you play the worst team in baseball and you go play a better team like the Reds, who I think are better than what their record is. That kind of brings you back to life a little bit. And now I start having questions about the Cubs, because here we are, Cleet. We're into June, and you start getting a feel of what a team is and what a team isn't. And there's still baseball left, but is this a team this kind of reminds me of the 2022 White Sox. Remember that year where we kept saying, well, they're going to turn it around.
Right. Exactly.
They're going to turn it around. Tony La Russa's got these guys. It's only June.
Hall
we
of
still
Fame
have time
manager,
left.
Great young core. Absolutely.
Is that what this team is? I don't know. I still think they're better than what they are, but I still think they're missing a major bat in that lineup. Their bullpen is not good. And I saw they're 23rd. Jesse Rogers from ESPN had it talking about it. That I want to say he said they're 23rd or 24th ranked bullpen or ERA bullpen in baseball right now. Don't quote me on that, but either way, I know
No,
it's
I think you're,
not good.
yeah, you're absolutely right around that neighborhood. Cause yeah, you got a $25 million shortstop hitting 200 in early June. You've got no kind of consistency, no kind of small ball game with runners in scoring position. The team as a team, they're hitting about 223, and I think you're right. The sample size there, and like you talk about, you don't have that power hitter that they didn't want to invest the extra 20 million in. You've got Ian Happ, who has one great game a week and then goes into a coma for 3 games, and this is what you have. You have a team that's now 3 games under 500 and fading fast in the NL Central. Matt Cooper, I'm going to ask you right now here, Friday, June 7th, 2024, are you buying or selling that the Cubs will rally back into the National League Central Division race this month, or is it wild
I
card of us now?
I'm still going to buy, but I'm very on the border, because it's June, so I'm still going to say I'm going to buy. I don't know if they're the best team in the division, though. I don't. I still think the red. I listen. We keep burying the Milwaukee Brewers. Milwaukee Brewers
Yeah.
have a good team. I don't know if they're going to come back down to life at all with all those young players that they have right now. But I still. I mean, would you say to me the Reds look like they could be the best team in that division? The Reds with their offense, and they don't even have all their with their other young pitching. I had Graham Ashcraft just got sent down to AAA because he's off to a rugged start this year. And if he comes back and does very well, I think the Reds could be the most dangerous team in that division.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And they're a team with no really bad payroll commitments. So I expect them to be actually buyers for the first time in years at the trade deadline next month. Coop, let me put you on the spot here again. Will the Cubs be buyers or sellers at the deadline? Will Tom Ricketts open up the checkbook for Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins, or is this team going to sink or swim with what it has?
I still think they're going to be buyers, and for the simple fact is there's a lot of mediocre teams in that wild card race right now. If you take a look at that wild card race,
Yeah.
you got a lot of mediocrity, so anything could happen. However, I think you got to be very careful too, and you got to ask yourself if this is the way they keep playing for the next 4 to 5 weeks, do you really want to go out and trade some of those young guys away? Because if you think about Counsell coming in, what's the thing on Craig Counsell as the manager is he gets the most and the best out of all those young players that he did in Milwaukee for years. Yeah. And the Cubs have all those young players still on the way and still going to be coming up. Heck, I was just watching the Smokies out here in Knoxville a couple of days ago. And I saw Shaw out there, and I saw some of these other players that could be on this team within the next year or so. And I just don't know if they continue to play like this, or if they're still 4, 5, 6 games under 500 by the deadline. Do you want to go make that splash? Do you want to go get that rental player and try to mortgage your future, thinking that this could be a year?
Yeah, Clip brings a good point too. How can you get on board with any team that's under 500, particularly a team that's been playing 400 baseball since May 1st?
And I think a lot of it's because of the mediocre National League right now. I think
exactly.
because the wild card is so bunched together.
Yeah, and that you bring up a good point too. I mean, this is a team that missed the playoffs by 1 game last year, going 83 and 79. It should be right there. That third wild card should be the saving grace of this team. But you would think, though, this is why you have to be buyers, in my opinion. Granted, protect this great young farm system. Don't give up any of the untouchables. And I'm talking about guys, I'm talking about guys like, Ben Brown. I'm talking about guys like Christopher Morel. But you have to go out and at least find 2 arms that can give you some kind of duct tape work in that bullpen, so you have some kind of bridge. We still don't know who the closer is. The problem is there is no bridge to the closer. I mean, the starter will give you 5, 6 quality innings, and then you're just swimming in shark-infested waters and hoping Hayden Wesneski doesn't give up the entire lead by the time you give
up another home
run. Ball off in the 8th.
White Sox.
Yeah, it's something here. But White Sox friends, as the countdown continues, Cheryl's been keeping us up to date. It is still 6-2 here in the 7th, and I believe, yep, there it is. We're gonna go to the 8th now. The White Sox 6 outs away. I feel like I'm talking about a perfect game. The White Sox 6 outs away from ending the longest losing streak in franchise history at 14 games. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Cooper is a son of the South Side. He bleeds White Sox baseball. Coop, for you, with what you've been getting to, I mean, I think we're all at the point. Yeah, look at there. That's that, ladies and gentlemen. That's pride right there. That is pride. I get pride in the name of glove. Without
one of the only 3 people wearing the Sox hat these days.
Exactly. The other two are team employees. Um, Coop, for you, are you numb to it right now, or how painful is it for you to watch your beloved Southsiders go through the worst stretch of baseball in the history, the long, storied history of this franchise?
Cleat, and I would love to know what other Sox fans think. I just don't care.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't care anymore. I knew this team was going to be bad this year. No, I didn't think they were going to be this bad, and I didn't think they were going to have a losing. It's really hard to lose 10 games in a row in Major League Baseball, let alone 14, and they've managed to do that. And the way they've lost some of these games, they've blown. I saw the stat where 22 blown leads this year
Yeah.
for this team, and they lead the league in that. And I think the only hope you have as a Sox fan right now, and I still believe this is my favorite team, man. All of Chicago sports, football is my favorite sport, but the White Sox are my favorite team out of all the sports, of all the teams in Chicago.
Yeah.
What I think needs to happen here. I think the manager needs to be out. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, you could just tell that the players when the players aren't standing up for you and you've lost this many games, what has he done good for this team to lose this many games? It shouldn't be this bad. I'm not blaming it on the manager because they put this team together the way they did,
Mhm.
but he has done nothing to me
Well,
to
yeah, and
have that spot.
like Cliff brings up, I think the reason why he's still in that dugout, why he's still managing this team in the eighth inning tonight, is because they have an owner who's emotionally divested from this team. He doesn't care. He's paid him the league minimum. He's like he knows he's going to lose 120, 125 games. He doesn't care. My question is, we know Pedro Grifol is a dead man walking. The axe is going to come down here within the next week. If you listen to the Athletics, Ken Rosenthal, who reports he could be fired any day now. Let's look at the future because there has to be something better than this. As
Yeah.
bad as this is, there has to be a light at the end of the tunnel, and the light at the end of the tunnel cannot be an oncoming train coupe. Who should the White Sox go to? I mean, yeah, I know a lot of people want Ozzie back. I'm right there with you. At this point, I say pull Ozzie Guillen out of the NBC Sports Chicago booth and put him back where he belongs. I think at least this team will be competitive under Ozzie. What's your call? Who should be the next manager of the Chicago White Sox?
So I think it needs to be a former player,
Yeah.
maybe a recent former player. How about a guy like David Ross?
Yeah.
Or AJ Przinsky, or one of these former players or somebody recently that has retired that could step in there and relate really well to some of these younger players. I think it needs to be somebody like that. I think it's one of those type of guys that needs to come in here, that a younger guy, a guy that is out of the league but hasn't been that far out of the league,
Mhm.
and they can come in and put their ways in, and they can kind of relate better than what we have with some of these other managers that we've
Yeah, absolutely. You want somebody with some kind of experience. Notorious TBG, good to see you, my friend. What's up as well? Thank you for joining us. Yeah, Coop, it's got to be somebody who I think has somebody who's vested in this team. Somebody, it's got to be a former Sox player. I mean, at this point, the question is right now, who would be naive, crazy, or maybe just nutty South Side loyal right now to take this job?
Well, I think it's going to be tough, but here's a couple of things you can look forward to. First off, I think by the trade deadline, and it's got to start now. Like
Yeah.
whoever's on this team, the only player that I don't think they're going to trade would be Luis Robert, and I would be for trading him. By the way, I should make that clear. If you had a team out there that's going to give you some prospects and overpay to get
Oh
a guy
yeah,
like Luis
if
Robert,
I can
you
get two,
trade
if
him.
I can throw in
This
the
guy's
trade
another
running
guy
for
to
Luis,
me.
yeah.
This is another guy to me that's kind of like home run or nothing. Sometimes he's hurt a lot. Heck, the other night of the Cubs game, he hit a home run, and then the next day he was 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts. So
Yeah.
I'm okay if they want to move him and they get a good return from him. But I
Yeah.
think you got to look at the guys that we have, like Crochet pitching tonight. I think you
Mhm.
can get a big return from him. Uh,
Yeah.
Friedel, Eric Freddy, who just pitched the other night, he's had a good season.
Yeah, he has. I want to hold on to that starting pitching. None of them are making money, and I know they would bring back stuff, but I just think you got to start somewhere, and that's where you start. Cliff Victoria, our good friend, says, with the Bears on the way up, he has no time for baseball. That's
See,
okay.
that's a lot of
Neither do
fans.
the White Sox right now, Cliff. So
Paul, another guy they could get something for is Paul DeYoung. Paul DeYoung's got over 10, he's got 10 home runs this year. Like he's
yeah,
got his pop back. He's had a really good year. He's a good defender. I think he
Yeah,
could be a good player on any contending
he
team.
is he's played great tonight without question, Coop. All right, Coop, my friend, running late here. Let's really quickly, Coop and Soup's 2-minute Windy City sports drill. Let me start you off right now, Coop. Blackhawks will be drafting in the June coming up here June 20th at NHL draft is going to be here in 3 weeks before we know it. Who should be Connor Bedard's wingman? Do you go out and get another offensive-oriented player? In my opinion, I get the best offensive guy on the board. I worry about defense later. I get the best scoring guy that we can to pair him on that top line.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you have to go that route, especially with the way they played last year. I think they got to go that route. It's going to be interesting to see though. And I guess it all depends on who the San Jose Sharks take for their
Yeah,
first pick.
yeah,
Which I
exactly.
think we kind of
Everything eventually will go through the Sharks with what they decide. But it's going to be interesting. Obviously, that team needs a truckload of offense still. Coop, moving on really quickly. The Chicago Sky, they have been beat up big time, both on the court and in the media this week. Are they becoming the WNBA's version of the Detroit Piston Nasty Boys of the late 1980s? Or are Angel Reese, Kennedy Carter, and co. just hungry young women trying to announce their presence with a rebel authority?
I think they're just trying to get their presence known because the pressure and everything that's on the WNBA right now. And it's unfortunate because, and I say this, I don't know about you, Cleet, but all the stuff that I saw when I followed my socials after that incident with Caitlin Clark was not for us. People were tearing them apart. People were tearing them
Yeah.
apart. They were tearing Chicago apart. They were calling this team like it wasn't good. So there's so many people out there that are giving us kind of that nickname, or they're not that nickname,
Mhm.
but that kind of mantra that we're dirty players. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen with this team. I want this team to be in a showcase saying, hey, guys, yes, Caitlin Clark is amazing. She's going to be amazing, but there's other great players in this league too. And Chicago just happens to have some of them. So I hope our PR and I hope everything around that can get better.
Yeah, I agree too. Angel said this week she doesn't mind being that villain, but you don't want her to be that villain. You don't want her to be that
I
Bill
don't.
Laimbeer. You don't want her to have that Rasheed Wallace tag. I mean, Rasheed Wallace was a phenomenal defensive player, but the first thing when you think about Rasheed's game, you don't think about all those defensive player of the year awards or all those all NBA teams. You think about all those technicals. You don't want that to be Angel.
No, you do
You
not.
want the focus to be on you want the focus to be on their play on the court without question. I believe in Angel Reese. I think she's still a work in progress, like a lot of kids are at the age of 21,
I
22.
think she's gonna be a really good player.
She's going to be really good. She's already a double-double machine. She just got to keep her eyes on the prize, without question. Matt Cooper, let's put you on the spot. Coop Stradamus, who will be the next NBA and NHL champions? Right now, boy, the Celtics looked good last night in
Yeah.
the NBA Finals. Stanley Cup Finals open up tomorrow night. Really intriguing matchup. The Edmonton Oilers trying to become Canada's first Stanley Cup champion. Believe it or not, in 31 years, Coop, against the Florida Panthers, who are right now untouchable on the power play.
Yeah, I think the Florida Panthers. I'm cheering for Edmonton. I think it'd be cool to have
Yeah,
Edmonton win. Connor McDavid getting that, and with what you just said
yeah.
about Canada for the first time in over 30 years. I just think it's gonna be really tough against this Florida team. This Florida team has
Yeah.
been really good this year. They've
Mhm.
been great in the playoffs. They have a lot of veteran players on
Oh
that
yeah.
team.
And
Um,
and to think, yeah, they won a game. They won a clinching game with 10 shots on goal. 10
10
shots on
shots. That's
goal.
insane,
Isn't
man.
that
And
insane? I think, yeah,
Sergei Bobrovsky, who when I was in Ohio, he was on the Blue Jackets at that
yeah,
time, and I remember him just what a beast he was as a
yeah,
goaltender for them, and he's been like that for the entire
yeah,
playoffs.
without, yeah.
So I want Edmonton to win, but I think Florida's going to win, and there's no question in my mind. I think the Celtics are going to win. Porzingis, the way he played last night,
Yeah.
with him back now on that team's just going to be too hard. I love the story of Dallas this year. It's been awesome. I just don't think they're going to have enough
Yeah,
players.
I think you're right. Lucas Brilliance will get them a game, but I think the Celtics take them out in 5. And I like you too, what you're thinking. I got the Panthers in 6. Really kind of a cool note. There's 3,200 miles between Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and Sunrise, Florida. It's got to be one of the widest
How do
geographic.
they? Hey, by the way, how do they keep that ice like that in Florida this time of the year?
I know exactly with that humidity. I mean, we were just talking about the humidity you have to deal with in Knoxville every day. You got to take that to a whole nother a level 11
Yeah,
or so.
I would love to know
Yeah,
how they keep that intact like
yeah.
that because it's in the 90s with all that humidity down there.
That is definitely a phenomenal facilities team without question. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Monday night, 8:30. You know where you're gonna be. You're gonna be watching Chicago Sports Podcast Monsters of the Madhouse. You know why, friends? Because everybody's got a price for the $1 million man, Ted DiBiase. That's right, friends. You heard right. WWE Hall of Famer, pro wrestling legend, Ted DiBiase, the $1 million man. He's rich. We're not. Will be live with us Monday night. It'll be the Punky LT, Brandon Trax Hyatt, Matt, the Great American DJ, Matt Cooper, and myself, Cleet Soup Campbell. We cannot wait. Be sure to get in that chat room early. Any questions you have for Ted, he will take us through his entire career, and we are going to hit on all the facets that made the $1 million man. In my opinion, Coop, you can make an argument maybe outside of Mr. McMahon, maybe the greatest wrestling villain of all time.
Oh, and this promos, and it's funny
Oh,
when we
yes.
I found out about this that he was coming on, and me, you, and Trax
Yeah.
were going to be on Monday night for this. I was thinking about some of his past promos and some of the
Oh,
work and some of the money work that he did.
yeah.
And I want to ask that I cannot wait to talk to him about.
Without question. Not only that, he's such a great a character, but he's also one of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time. Maybe the best wrestler on the planet in his era, next to Bret the Hitman Hart. We will have all of you've got questions. We will have the $1 million man, Ted DiBiase's answers for you, friends. Don't forget, that will be this Monday night, 8:30 p.m. on the voice of the Chicago sports fan, Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. To all of our friends, we love you guys. Notorious
Thank you, guys.
TBG, good to see you again. Cliff Victoria, Ant Moss, Lion King, all of you checking in tonight. Bruja 7, great to see you. Scottish Bear, Scoreboard, Cheryl Childers for keeping us up to date on what's going on with the White Sox. We love you guys. Thank you so much for kicking off your weekend with us. We'll be back here with you next Friday. Matt Cooper, you will not be able to join us. We wish you and your family a wonderful Father's Day celebration out in North Carolina. Hopefully we'll have Mr. Chicago himself, Sean Lugo, will be back with me next Friday night. But friends, again, it's our honor and privilege talking sports with you. Be sure to hit that like button on YouTube and subscribe. Until we meet again, friends, Monday night, 8:30 p.m. with the $1 million man, Ted DiBiase. Keep living your life like NFL Hall of Famer Steve Mongo McMichael with everything you got. For Matt, the Great American DJ Cooper, I'm Cleve Campbell. This has been Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. Good night, everybody.